And, let me be clear. Companies should value that work, right? They should value making sure that you're included. By God, I call myself the inclusion strategist. So I am big on that and making sure that leadership keeps that top of mind. However, there is some responsibility on ourselves. And maybe this is just where I am in my stage of life. I may not have said this in my earlier part of my career. My expectations may have been for the company to do all that. But what I have learned is that I need a holistic team. I need a 360. I need people at home. If I don't have them at home, I need people in organizations and I need people at work because we know we spend the majority of our time at work. And to your point, there may be groups like that I'm speaking of at work, like an employee resource group or a business resource group. I'm not saying you have to have a ton of people around you. It might be one, it might be two, but you do need a holistic approach when we're talking about showing up in the workplace, feeling authentic, feeling empowered to be who you are.
So you are able to, okay, let's say you now are feeling good about bringing yourself to work, the professional self. A lot of that is so you have the confidence to be able to do your job. And a lot of the things that we have to do at work, it's kind of a game. It's politics.
Yeah.
You have to influence, you have to build credibility. What do you think are some tangible ways that we can actually start building influence and start building credibility without always having to also feel like I'm always proving myself, but I need to be able to play the game? Does that make sense of how can we build that up?
Absolutely. If you know anything about me, I can talk all day. I'm qualitative. I'm a feeler. I want to hug you. I'll just, cry on my shoulder. Let's do the storytelling, all of that. But there was a time when I was working for a company that was all data driven. They were engineers, project managers. They didn't want a story or a telling. Okay. They looked at the numbers and the numbers is what spoke to them. And so I spent time on my own learning more about data, learning more how to tell my story in a data way. Now, that didn't mean I wasn't still authentic to myself. We still got some storytelling in, but I was able to begin to learn how to speak that language. That's just the same. When I studied in Madrid years and years ago, naively, I thought, could you show up to Madrid and start speaking English? And we are well on our way. They speak English there. And I was pleasantly surprised in the airport to see that no one spoke it. Whether they did or not, they thought probably it was disrespectful, even if they did. But once I started learning just a few words, that opened up my door to so many opportunities. So I translate that over to when I was working for this company. I would do a little data talk. Some of my storytelling stuff around DEI was data. This is what the data is saying. These are the numbers. These are the statistics. And I had some people helping me out, some colleagues and such. Next thing I know, the door has been opened to several people. And now I can start telling the stories. Now I can start telling you about the experiences that people are having that I am having that are bias related or make me uncomfortable. But I couldn't get there until I was able to speak the language a little bit. I'm not saying leave again all your stuff at the door and assimilate. That is not me. That is not my ministry at all. But what I am saying is if you're walking, again, you're doing your research. If you're walking into a company, what are their values? Are they data oriented? Are they team oriented? Are they one-on-one independent contributors do the thing? Tons of just contractors. Are they global? Are they local? Are there values around spirituality and religion? Think about those things and then just get a little piece of it. If that's not really necessarily your thing, get a little piece of that, speak that language, and then that will begin to open up the door. The other thing I like to say to people, especially when they feel kind of uncomfortable in spaces, but all the leaders are there. Let's say it's a huge town meeting and all the leaders are there and you're like, oh my God, I'm not gonna just speak up and start saying stuff. Asking questions. Always being that person to ask questions. Leadership loves when you ask questions, even if it's just the most basic question you probably ever thought of in your mind. They know, we know Aisha's going to ask a question.
And there's probably 20 other people that wanted to ask that question, but we're too scared anyway.
Yes, absolutely. And it's a great way to kind of deflect off of you because you don't want all the attention. It's like you're asking that person that question and you just kind of, shuffle over, into non-existence, if you will, because you're terrified. But if you ask those questions, you will be alarmed how many people kind of take you into the fold because you're seen as the one that's inquisitive. So there's several things that you can do.
That's a good call out. But questions, just don't feel scared to do it. But that's how you're right, though. You can actually get more credibility because you become the curious one, or, oh, he actually
Mhm.
cares. Or before you go into the room, do just a couple minutes of, like you said, of intelligence to learn the language,
Yes.
to learn what they're working on. It doesn't take a lot to really get
Yes.
some of that information for people to be like, okay, now I'm going to open the doors for you because you've
Right.
shown that you care, or
Right.
even
And once
pretend to
that
care.
door, yeah, and once that door is open, take advantage. Use that platform to begin to build some trust. Again, I'm not saying that, if this person plays golf, you can start playing golf too. No, I'm not saying that. What I am saying is start engaging and saying, hey, Brian, now that you notice that I've been on the chat all the time asking questions or whatever the case may be, because I know Brian is the influencer. I know every time the CEO talks, he mentions Brian, or the manager talks, he mentions Brian. So clearly in my head, that's saying, you're an influencer. I can say to you, Brian, what do you think I should be doing here? I really want to move up in the next 5 years. Do you have any advice about how to do that? Or it seems like, every time that there is a promotion that happens, I'm not being considered. What is that about? Can you help me understand that? That's when you begin to ask the questions, and some of them tough questions, not just, how can I, make it to the next position, but why is it that I'm being overlooked, or why is it that we're not having X, Y, and Z? That's when you begin to have some of those, kind of quote unquote uncomfortable conversations.
That's the huge one because me being in HR, and I think you hear it all the time, where I think people are waiting for the manager to see them or somebody to magically come and to say, you're the magic one.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to speak up for yourself and ask the question that's maybe uncomfortable, because you might get an answer you don't want to hear. Well, actually,
Mm-hmm.
Brian, your attitude sucks. You blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But you have to ask those questions.
Yes.
And unless you have just the most draconian, diabolical leader, they're going to be open to you as long as you ask the right way.
Yes.
One more question digging here, and I know the answer, but I want to make sure that the people watching or listening understand.
Yeah.
Mentors and sponsors, I think that they are two different things. But
Right.
when we're talking about making influence and having credibility and people speaking your name in rooms when you're not there, walk me through why people, especially if you're a woman, a person of color, or just anybody in general, should have a mentor versus what is a sponsor, what's the difference, and why do you need both of those really to actually level up and make some difference?
Sure. I mean, I think I'll start first, just in terms of navigating the workplace in general. I don't know how colleges are doing. I need to spend some more time in the college environment, but there's not a lot of and don't come for me, but there's not a lot of pedagogy around how to navigate the workplace in this new world. We're just kind of figuring it out as we go. I mean, I know there's organizations like SHRM that give great information of just how to navigate a culture and things of that nature, but it's not kind of this innate skill of how to show up for work and how to move around. And the reason, in my opinion, outside of some of the privilege that has been granted to some and maybe not others, is some of these folks that are doing really well have had both mentors and sponsors. And so I love this question because there is a difference between the two. I liken mentors to be like your GPS. They guide you
Right.
to the place you want to go. And they help you think about where you want to go, but they guide you. They keep you, they say, turn left, turn right, up, stop, don't go there, to make it to the place where you want to be. And sponsors are like the ideal usher maitre d' at an event. They open up the door for you, right? They guide you to your seat, to the table. They tell you all the people that are at the table. They make sure you know how to show up.